You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast by the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, joined here once again after a week hiatus because we were both very busy last week. So apologies for not having an episode out, but hey, we have lives outside of the Rockies.
We do?
Oddly enough, yes. But we're back here and I'm joined once again, Evan Lang.
Yeah, call it breaking news that we exist outside of the podcast.
It's true. I was busy calling college baseball games, and Evan went to the women's hockey game in Denver.
Give us a team.
There you go. Fun stuff. It worked out this weekend, Evan, where you didn't have anything going on, and the college baseball game that I called this weekend went pretty quick.
You were worried, though. I remember we were talking about it. It's like, well, I think I'll be done by this time. But that's if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah. And luckily, it turns out by the Sunday game, the fourth game of the weekend series, it goes pretty quick.
Yeah, but that's college baseball for you sometimes.
It's college baseball in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, where yesterday you can have a game that ends 17-16. And then you can have a game today that ends 3-1.
That's RMAC baseball, baby.
Mm-hmm. Where a team can put up 8 in the top half of the inning, and then the other team can put up 10 runs in the bottom half of the inning with 2 grand slams and still lose.
Oof. Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, and that was in the third inning. I still had at least 4 innings to go after that.
There's something beautiful about baseball.
And something just horrific and deformed.
Oh, ugh. That too. But, I mean, we already knew that. We've been Rockies fans for how many years now?
Too long.
No, it's too low. Then you got to do the clapping.
But, yeah, fun stuff. And we got a lot to talk about, Evan. So it kind of worked out. There wasn't a lot to talk about last week anyway, in a sense. So it's kind of worked out. There's a lot happening. We have an idea. Pretty much the opening day roster is mostly set, aside from one little group. So we're going to talk all about that, break it down. But first things first, the WBC came to a close, and the Rockies brought home some hardware with Team Venezuela winning the game, winning the whole tournament, defeating Team USA, and Ezequiel Tovar and Antonio Senzatella by association, both bringing home gold medals. But Tovi in itself on the big stage had a good WBC and Team Venezuela as a whole.
Like I think it was Michael Garcia for the Royals who got named the tournament MVP. But you could have made an argument for Tovar. I think Garcia ends up taking it just because he drove in more runs and had some big clutch moments. But in terms of pure numbers, Ezequiel Tovar was Venezuela's best hitter in the tournament. By average and by on-base percentage, he had multiple doubles, he had stolen bases, he had his normal fantastic glove work, and it was really, really great to see, Ezequiel Tovar, who I don't think gets nearly enough recognition on the national or international level, really stand up there on this international stage and go, acknowledge me.
Yeah, and you can't blame a lot of it where he plays for the Rockies. Rockies aren't really exactly relevant. So there's no reason to pay attention to him. And he's, his really one good season. Like, he was getting noticed by the players, got his gold glove that one year. But injuries really robbed him last year, and I think he just fell off everybody's map. I think that's the WBC and him being able to have a good performance in it, hopefully is like something that trajects him into a really good year in 2026. And he goes back to what we saw him and even better than that in a sense. So hopefully this was a really good experience for him to just jumpstart what could be a great year for his career.
And you know what really stood out during the tournament was he wasn't chasing nearly as much. He did not strike out that much during the tournament. I was very impressed by that. And
Yeah.
I know that that's something that he's been working on, and the Rockies staff wanted him to work on, and he was probably working on with guys like Miguel Cabrera in the Venezuelan dugout. But he really was impressive. And I know that this was something that he was very, very proud of, to wear Venezuela on his chest and then have Venezuela really be I don't think anybody expected Venezuela to win the whole thing, where they knocked out Japan,
Yeah.
knocked out then the next top seed, which was Italy, and then beat Team USA to take home the gold.
Yeah. And just what a great opportunity for him to get that experience playing like this playoff caliber type baseball atmosphere and to be around, a Hall of Famer like Miguel Cabrera, just all those other teammates to be around and kind of pick their brain and just kind of unite for his country. But just what a great experience for him and what he can take into the regular season. Senzatella only had one appearance during the tournament, pitched an inning, but I think he came into camp and he was talking about a changeup that he had learned from one of the other guys there on Team Venezuela that he's really excited to work with and thinks is in a good place. So just a great opportunity for them to learn some other stuff from their teammates and other guys around the league and then bring that into their game in the regular season. You can say that across the board. I think the Rockies had a good showing in the WBC pretty much across the board
Yeah.
for the majority of them.
I will have over on Purple Row a big World Baseball Classic recap going up. If you're listening to this on day of release today, it should hopefully be available. If not now, then soon. Basically going over, the Rockies had 12 players in the World Baseball Classic, one of the bigger delegations of any MLB team, and pretty much everybody had something to say about it during and after the tournament, and had their own little moments, from your minor league guys like Antoine Jean to Tovar, and even Senzatela, where he really only got to pitch once during the actual tournament, but you can tell that just being there was meaningful to him. And all the
Yeah.
guys in between. Michael Lorenzen takes home bronze as part of Team Italy. uh I
Had a
love the
huge
world.
game against Team USA.
That was incredible. And Michael Lorenzen described it as it's playoff baseball in March.
Yeah.
And what a great tournament. And now I'm sad that it's over, because we've got to wait till 2029 or 2030 for the next one.
Yeah. And like, what are the odds that we'll get MLB players in the Olympics, in 2028? Like, who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll go with the CBA and whatnot, but no, this is our opportunity. And so it was awesome, fun stuff across the board for the Rockies. And we're getting guys back. We finally got to see Tomoyuki Sagano in a Rockies uniform pitching the game. Well, we didn't get to see him, but we heard about it.
He
Yeah,
was
and whatnot.
there. There
Yeah,
was at least one photo of Tomoyuki Sagano in his large pants. And then he went off to Japan. And that's the funny thing, is like guys like Senzatela as well. They really only got just a small handful of action before they had to go off to their national team training camps and stuff like that. And so a lot of these guys came back, and we haven't seen them in forever.
yeah, and it's kind of helped shape the roster. Some of those guys were like, yeah, they were going to be on this roster, and some of the things just kind of reshaped things how they've worked out. But we might as well get into it, Evan, because manager Warren Schaeffer kind of gave us pretty much the outline of pretty much the whole opening day roster, minus the bullpen, which will probably be like announced or formulated come Monday, probably or Tuesday. So, day you're hearing this, we don't know about the bullpen yet, but we have ideas, and we'll touch on that. But let's talk about some of the more notable things that we've talked about. First and foremost, first base. That was a question. It was a conglomerate of people coming in, trying, kept hearing, well, maybe the Rockies will bring somebody in. Maybe they'll bring in a right-handed veteran or all this stuff. And at the end of the day, as the dust has settled, one man stands atop the rest, and it's TJ Rumfield, acquired from the Yankees in the Angel Chivigi trade. Chivigi trade is TJ Rumfield wins the
It,
opening.
it's pronounced Luigi.
Oh, Chivigi. But TJ Rumfield wins the job, it looks like, and will be your Rockies opening day starting first baseman.
it was one of those ones, and we've been speculating on this now for the last couple of weeks, but TJ Rumfield, like we were wondering, we really were, if they were going to bring in anyone else. You know, you had thought about maybe Nathaniel Lowe or somebody else. They had other guys who could potentially play first base, you know, Edward Julian and stuff like that. But they brought in this guy who had solid AAA numbers, and he really kind of ran away with it. I think neither of us are surprised that Charlie Condon was not named the opening day first baseman. And we were not particularly surprised when they reassigned him to minor league camp. You know, he had a very good showing this spring, but he's still pretty raw and just not ready. And it's not something that you really need to rush him into. And for TJ Rumfield, you know, he's one of those guys where we've talked about players like that before. There's really not much for him to prove in the minor league level anymore. You know, he's 25, 26. He's already got good numbers in AAA and AA. And he really just took hold of the position and didn't let it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a guy that has learned a lot. He has the experience, and I think that's what it came down to is experience at this level. Charlie Condon had a good spring training too. No, it was right there neck and neck with TJ Rumfield. No, was getting that opportunity, but understands that, yeah, probably needs more experience down in AAA Albuquerque. Uh, that would be great. He can play there, debut at some point this season. But what you needed was a buffer, and they want him to also, learn more outfield positions, reintroducing that back in to increase his value to the overall roster. In case something happens, and then okay, we have an avenue, we can bring up Condon, but he needs more experience, and Rumfield has that AAA experience. No, there's nothing left to do down there, like you said, and there's nothing blocking him now. He could have been with the Yankees at some point over the last couple seasons, but you had Anthony Rizzo, you had Paul Goldschmidt, now Ben Rice came into the picture, and so wide open, and he took his opportunity, which is awesome,
Yeah.
and played well.
And it's not necessarily the raw numbers you look at for Rumfield and go, oh, that's why he's best. Like, he hit something like 280 during spring training, you know, and at time of recording, there's only a handful of games left. But the biggest thing that I think the Rockies are high on is, at time of recording, TJ Rumfield has struck out one time the entirety of spring training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And we know that that's been a point of emphasis for the Rockies, is cutting down on strikeouts. And I think you want the guy who's proven, at least through spring training, and you know, you always take spring training numbers with a grain of salt, but that he's not going to be a strikeout king.
and I made this comparison over in Purple Row on the State of the Position series, where you look at just what he's done in camp, the strikeouts, because the talk was, oh, the Rockies need to sign Luis Arraez because he's a contact machine, he won't strike out. And was the Rumfield has struck out less times in such and such spring training games than Luis Arraez did in the WBC in half the games. It was like 2 strikeouts for Team Venezuela. But they made that comparison. But I made that it kind of heralds back Rumfield's just game and how he approaches at the plate, heralds back to a certain Hall of Famer for the Rockies, of a contact really first approach that can then, just by circumstance, by consequence, can result in doubles and home runs. But it goes back to just he's trying to make good contact, and that other stuff follows. And so that, if it carries over in the regular season as he faces big league pitching, that would be awesome and a great Rookie of the Year candidate.
Yeah, and you know, Rumfield, the raw power itself isn't necessarily one of his main tools, but because of his ability to make contact, he led Rockies camp in home runs so far this spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's one of those things where we've talked about it before with guys like a friend of the show, Kyle Karros, that you work on hitting the ball, and the power comes with that. You've got to be able to actually hit the ball.
And he's doing that. So, and he plays a good first base. I think that's a big part of it too. Is good defensively. He's sound, very sound defensively, and he's a guy that's you can plant there at first base and trust him there, and you're not going to be trying to like move around trying to fit him into line. But first base is his. That's where he's going to play the majority of the time, or he'll DH. into
He's
that
really
mix.
sort of your anti-Michael Tolia, honestly, in
Hmm.
terms of last year.
He bats. He only bats from he bats from the left side, his good side. He plays good defense, but then he just doesn't strike out a ton.
And you also mentioned this as well. I legitimately love the idea of having Rumfield as the opening day first baseman because it does open up more. Like the Rockies, I think, felt kind of hamstrung into having to say, all right, Charlie Condon is the first baseman of the future because Tolia flamed out and they really did not have any other options. And now they can explore exactly what they want to do with Condon. Do they want to put him in right field or left field? Do they want him at first base? Do they want to try putting him at third again? There's options now because
Yeah,
you've got a guy that you went out and obtained under part of this new front office who ran away with the position and gave you time to think.
yeah, and Condon probably like first base will still be his like position one, but just having that variety of versatility of we can plug him in out there as we need. If something else like okay, then we'll plug him out there, and that's where he'll find success. Kind of like Spencer Torkelson got moved around a bunch with the Tigers, and then settled in at first base, and then finally was starting to break out a little more after these last several years. But good on Rummy, and we're excited to see what he can do come opening day as he's taking that position. Also in that first base mix, Edward Julien, he will be making the roster, Evan, as a general utility guy. My predictions over at Purple Row, that was what I figured is that he would make the roster simply by virtue of he can play first base and he can also play second base. So there's some versatility there for him. You can fill in two spots with him as well.
Yeah, they'll find spots for Julian, and he has really started to take shape late in spring training. Um, he did not have a good start to spring training. He dealt with some injuries. I know he had some back tightness, and he, for a large part of the World Baseball Classic, was not doing particularly well at the plate. But then towards the end of the tournament, he started to get some hits, and then he came back and started to get some hits. And now I feel a lot more comfortable with Julian on the roster, um, just because he does have that versatility, and also you traded for him. You obviously
Yeah.
want him, and there's still, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, there's still some opportunities for other guys on the roster, even if you have Julian on there.
Yeah. And I think it helps now to kind of see Julian as okay, we're not banking on him to be the answer at first base because we have Rumfield there now. No, because that's kind of what the assumption was. You brought him over and he's probably going to be our first baseman, or he's going to be one of those like starters. But now he's just a guy, part of the roster, who'll get starts there, and I'm sure he'll do fine. But now there's less pressure on he has to be the one to perform because we have nobody else after him. He's our starter. Like, no, he's just a guy we can mix in. He's in the mix. And I think that's the approach they're taking with a lot of these guys across the roster. But I like Julian. Nice left hander. He's Canadian. Works for me.
He is Canadian.
He is French Canadian. Uh, Kind of let's stick with that infielder utility type guy as well, because they kind of listed Julian as utility infielder. Ryan Ritter, also with a phenomenal spring, is also going to be making the roster as a utility guy on the bench, kind of the super utility now. Which friend of the show, heck of a job this spring, just thrown into the wolves of hey, go learn the outfield, hey, go
Yeah.
take some reps at first base and practice.
What do you mean you? What do you mean you've never played in the outfield? Well, time to learn, kid.
Yeah. But he's risen to the challenge and good on him. That good work ethic. Like we talked to him, good humble kid, and rose to the occasion and earned himself a spot with his not just with the glove too, Evan. No, it's not kind of the mercy. Oh, well, he's a good utility guy that we can have for defense. He hit good this spring too.
He's been fantastic. I mean, even today against the A's, the game that's still going on right now, he's currently 2 for 3 with a home run. He's one
Hmm.
of actually the OPS leaders on the team this spring training. He's shown power, he's shown consistency. he's been fantastic. And
Yeah.
this is, I think, exactly what we wanted to see from him. It's very similar to Kyle Karros of, all right, you had your debut and it came in less than ideal circumstances. Now, this spring, it's time for you to earn the job and show that you belong on the opening day roster. And he's done that in spades.
Mm-hmm. And so, and he'll get he was getting reps at first base one day over there. I wouldn't be surprised we see him at first base in a game this season. You know, sky's the limit now with opening up so many more avenues. And we're seeing just the influence, I think, of the front office. Josh Burns coming over, where, yeah, versatility is so important for a roster. We're going to make sure guys can play as many positions as we feel they're capable of. And it'll just open up more opportunities for Ritter to plug and play as needed. And, maybe he can hit himself into a more regular lineup like Chris Taylor did, where he's in the lineup near every day just because he's hitting and he can play multiple spots.
Yeah, and the Rockies really haven't had a true super utility guy since Garrett Hampson.
Yeah.
And I think Ritter has a higher ceiling right now than Hampson and is performing quite well. And I would love to see that. And this is no disrespect to my boy Hampy.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for Ryan Ritter.
Yeah. It's awesome for him. Should we talk on one more before we hit our break, Evan, or should we go to break?
Let's go to break. We got plenty of time.
Okay. We run long this episode because we didn't have one last week, so people can deal with it.
We probably would have run long anyway.
Mm-hmm. But now we have to justify it. But we'll take a quick break here when we come back. More roster stuff here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here, Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan talking the end of spring training. I don't know about you, Evan. Did it feel like spring training was really long?
Yes.
It felt much longer this year.
And part of it, I think, is because of the World Baseball Classic, where in the middle of spring training, all these games are already going on. And then you're paying attention to the World Baseball Classic, which is exciting, competitive baseball. And then you go back to spring training where the games don't really matter. Everybody's tinkering with stuff. And it really puts into perspective.
That too, and like the broadcast schedule is so just inconsistent. You don't know. Sometimes just don't know when a game is going on, when it's going to be televised, or whether it's on the radio, or is it going to be the opposing team feed. And
I
so
feel like this year was particularly bad when it came to spring training games just not really being available to watch or to listen to. Like the amount of times we post the game threads on Purple Row or whatever, and it's TV, none, radio, none. It's like, then what's the point? It's the last Sunday of spring training, and you can't watch or listen to the Rockies playing the Athletics.
Yeah, I know. It's like, why not just like hire a bunch of like students from a local college who are studying that stuff and just let them get some experience doing that spring training games?
Let me do it.
Yeah.
Rockies, here's a deal for you for next spring. Let me sleep in like the dugout or something. I don't need any fancy accommodations. Just get me like a cot in the dugout, and I will stand behind home plate with my phone for each game and just record it. Or you want to save even more money, get a $20 tripod from like Best Buy or something.
No, you get an unpaid intern to do it, Evan. That's how it works in the sports world.
I feel like the tripod would still be cheaper.
But yeah, it just felt long. Felt like a long one. And like you said, like you stop caring like halfway through the game because like, oh, all the regulars gone, and now it's just a bunch of minor leaguers. That,
yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love seeing the minor leaguers, but when you get to the point where it's like, and here's such and such wearing number 92 up from high A today, it's like the game doesn't really matter. And you could argue spring training games never really matter, but I think we're all ready for the season to start.
Mm-hmm. I am too. And hey, part of that is putting together the roster. And how about that for a segue, my friends? But one of the big position battles, Evan, probably one of the more notable ones, it was first base. And then it was figuring out who's going to be the backup catcher. And it ultimately came down to Braxton Fulford and Brett Sullivan duking it out for that backup position behind Hunter Goodman. And it looks like Brett Sullivan came in on a minor league deal. Looks like he's winning that job coming out of camp as Braxton Fulford was sent down to AAA Albuquerque to start the season. And Sullivan, who has roughly the same amount of big league experience as Fulford, just spread over a couple more seasons. Very experienced catcher, and now joins the Rockies out of camp, which who saw that coming into camp?
Yeah, starting spring training, I thought it's just going to be the two of them. It's going to be Fulford as the backup and Goodman as the starter, and maybe they bring in a third. And for Brett Sullivan, a guy who is 32 years old and only has 40 something big league games under his belt, he was really given an opportunity to try and earn the backup catcher job. And I think where he comes in is that he was just very solid in that, in terms of his behind the plate presence, you never really had to talk about it, which is good. It's one of those things where for your backup catcher, the less you have to say about them, the better. Sometimes it's like with umpires, if you know their name, that's usually not a good sign. But compare that to Braxton Fulford, who had some pretty bad defensive miscues last year behind the plate and has had some defensive miscues during spring training behind the plate, versus Sullivan. And then you compare the seasons or spring trainings they've had in terms of their offense, and Sullivan just really appeared to be the more well-rounded of the two right now.
Yeah.
And right now, I know Warren Schaeffer has said that optioning Fulford to AAA, he's going to be the starting catcher for the Isotopes, get every day at bats. And this is probably not the last we've seen of him,
Yeah.
but I think this is probably the right move because Sullivan has done a lot of the same things that Fulford has done in terms of RBIs, in terms of consistent plate approach, but he's also got similar speed. They both stole 2 bases. They're both very quick and athletic, but Sullivan struck out way less this spring.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I think what it was going to really come down to, because we know Fulford, they liked his bat, they liked the athleticism. We kept hearing about how both of them athletic could be used as know, substitute runners late in the game, which how often is that actually going to happen? Like, honestly, how often are we going to see your backup catcher be used as the pinch runner late in the game? Like, it's nice to have in your pocket, but that shouldn't be that decision you try to. That shouldn't be what you base your decision on. Which what I kept hearing about with Fulford. Oh, he's athletic and he's run fats. Okay, how good is he at hitting or catching? But I think what it's going to come down to is who's just the better game caller and defensively, like you mentioned. And I think Sullivan wins that. Just the experience he has in the minors. He no experience is experience, and he has a lot of professional experience. He's worked with a lot of pitchers. In the Padres with the Pirates, and that goes a long way. And has a good reputation as a defensive catcher and the game planning and stuff. He's already started to mentor some of the other guys, young pitchers and whatnot. So I think Sullivan just kind of fills a need the Rockies were hoping for, kind of like Jacob Stallings did, where Stallings, a good catcher, and worked well with the pitchers. It's kind of that same thing they're following here, except you're not expecting him to be the starter. But he's a guy who can also mentor Hunter Goodman more defensively.
Yeah. Sullivan is one of those guys who, so I think Jacob Stallings is a really good comparison, though he's a bit younger, is the kind of guy that you would eventually see going into coaching or going into player development roles, like, say, Jacob Stallings did this
Yeah.
offseason with his retirement, where he is now in coaching and player development. And I see that same kind of track for Sullivan. And I also think it's very funny that the Rockies just seem to attract guys named Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, Brett,
Corey.
I'm sure they've
Yeah.
had more.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, so I think Sullivan, who knows how it'll translate to regular season. Again, you can always take offensive numbers for some guys with a grain of salt in spring training, and there's very little you can ascertain from it. But he won that job, and I think it's good for Fulford too. Gets to play every day down in Albuquerque, and hopefully Kyle McCann sticks with the team and or stays in the organization down there in AAA. And he's another guy who can, you get a nice lefty righty tandem at both levels, which I think is huge and can be very beneficial. Just mixing and matching. And, McCann can help mentor Fulford down there as well.
Yeah.
So,
And for both, it's a very low risk move.
yeah.
Sullivan, you've got to add him to the 40-man roster, but you are already having two spots open up with RJ Pettit and Pearson Ole having to go to the 60-day IL for Tommy John surgery. And so you basically have a consequence free 40-man roster spot opening up for Sullivan. And if it doesn't work out for whatever reason after a couple months, okay.
Yeah. It's like, not a lot. Option him down to AAA if you need to. I'm sure that can happen. You got options. And so that'll be good. Brett Sullivan, your backup catcher. Hunter Goodman, he'll be in there as your starter. Moving around, a big one. We've talked about it before, but Kyle Karros winning the third base job. I think it was a linchpin in a lot of other decisions that happened on this infield where Karros made it his own, and it made a lot of other decisions a little easier and clearer of what you can do coming out of camp and what you do with Willie Castro. I think those two go hand in hand. Second and third base. Karros wins third base. Okay, then we can stick Castro at second more often than not, and that gives you a really good defensive alignment.
Yeah, and I think Karros honestly clinched the third base job weeks ago. We've already
Yeah,
talked about it on the show that he was a shoo-in for the job. We said coming into spring training, he's got to prove that it's his job, and he did that almost immediately and
yeah,
had a really, really fantastic spring. And like you said, it really sets other things into alignment because now you don't really have to worry about second base because it was originally well, what kind of role do you use Willie Castro in? And what about, Ariel Amador or Edward Julian? And now it is, okay, third base is set. So that means Willie Castro is set. That sets Willie Castro in as your opening day second baseman.
yeah,
Because, in being blunt, Ariel Amador looked terrible this spring. He is still very young, but he proved, I think, unfortunately, he's still not big league ready like he has in his other short cups of coffee on the big league roster. And having him not be ready could have been a panic move. But now we can go, okay, well, third base is set, so we don't have to worry about Willie having to play third or whatever. There's your
yeah,
second baseman. And Edward
and,
Julian is on the roster, so there's your backup second baseman.
yeah. And you have Ryan Ritter, who also can be your backup second baseman. You know, it becomes less of a carousel of, well, we're just going to cycle a bunch of guys in to see who sticks. But now you have an idea of, okay, this is the set roster. This is who we figure are going to stick. And then this is how we want to use our bench.
Yeah.
Instead of, give more clarity and just makes it easier for Warren Schaeffer penciling in the lineup. And of course, Castro will probably still play third. He'll move around, but we even saw him make a start at first base here in spring training, a
Yeah.
position he has never played professionally at any level.
What it really makes you think about is the depth of consider last year when Tovar went down and you lost Tyro Estrada and the depth in the middle infield was really challenged. You can tell that the Rockies didn't want to end up in a situation where they had to go trade for Alan Trejo
Yeah,
and
because you
bring
had
him back in, where you have got a bunch of different guys who can play all of these positions and not have to worry about calling up Ariel Amador, who is just not ready for that stage right now, or having to make a desperation move to reunite with a familiar face or something like that. You've
yeah,
got four different guys who can play second base right now, and three different guys who can play shortstop right now.
yeah, and you hope Nicky Lopez, Chad Stevens, they stick around in the organization down in Albuquerque. There's some immediate depth you can bring up too as needed. It makes it a lot easier to plug holes, like you're saying. Oh, Tovar goes down. Well, we can move Ritter there, and then we can bring up a different utility type guy, a Nicky Lopez, somebody you can move around a little bit more. So
Yeah.
it makes it easy. And like we said, linchpin, Kyle Karros, just dominoes started to fall after that. Which who would have thought third base would have been so important?
Who knew?
But yeah, we always know. And then here's the last big one that we can touch on here in this segment, Evan, and then move on to other things. Uh, with the starting rotation, it's been filled out. Looks like Kyle Freeland will be the opening day starter. Surprise, surprise. Extending his franchise record to a fifth time. Uh, any surprises there, Evan?
No,
Anything notable with Freeland?
if you didn't think, I heard, well, not heard. There are some commenters on Purple Row and some other stuff saying, "Oh, we'll finally be free from Kyle Freeland." It's like he's still overall your best pitcher, and there was basically no way unless he completely choked in spring training, unless he looked completely awful, completely unplayable. He was always going to be your opening day pitcher, in my opinion.
And he's pitched well in spring training.
Yeah,
Like,
he has looked like Kyle Freeland, and
and
you
I,
can do a heck of a lot worse than that.
yeah, and I think people just hate on him for some reason. I don't know why. I don't understand it, but he's been good. He was honestly your best pitcher last year.
Yeah,
It's not saying much, but he's good, and I think this year can be a really good year for Kyle. Just with this new regime, he's all bought in. He's excited to have this new information, try out new things. Pitch calling from the dugout. He's like, hey, let's do it. Like he's all on board, and I think this could be a really good year for Kyle. And we'll see what happens because it's a contract year for him too, in a
yeah.
sense. Unless he throws 170 innings, then it becomes a vesting option.
And the big thing for Kyle Freeland is that, you know, I think at this point in his career, he is what he is. You know, he's never going to recapture that 2018 season, and there's no more expectation for him to do that. But every year in his career, except for 2019, he has been just a solid pitcher. He's not a world beater. He's not a Cy Young candidate, but he is a solid rotation piece. And honestly, with all of the struggles that the Rockies have had in their rotation over the last few years, sometimes that's what you need is a floor guy versus a ceiling guy. And Kyle
Yeah.
Freeland sets the floor for this rotation in a better spot than it could be.
Yeah. So good on him. And I'm always excited to watch Kyle Freeland pitch again. Hey, when he had that opening day start in Miami that one year, it's really good.
Yeah.
Really
And
good.
I am a Kyle Freeland guy. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel really bad because he gets dumped on a lot. And sometimes for good reason, he can be emotional. He can have these outbursts. But like you said, what's important is that this year he is fully bought in. He has had nothing but good things to say. He has been incredibly supportive of all the changes. And to have that in, you know, I'm sorry, Kyle Freeland is your face of the franchise right now, or at the very least one of the few for a rebuilding team. People are at least going to know who Kyle Freeland is when
No.
when you ask them about the Rockies.
Yeah. He's been around for a long time. Filling in the rotation behind him, it'll be no surprise Michael Lorenzen, then Jose Quintana, and then Tomoyuki Sagano, who we actually got to see him pitch. Again, like I mentioned, had a good WBC outing, then a good outing in his. He'll get one more outing. It looks like before spring training gets out, so he'll have one more outing probably, but try to stretch him out a little more. But it'll be Sagano, and then the fifth man role. It was falling down to a couple guys. Tanner Gordon did not make the cut, got optioned down, which was a little surprising. And then it fell down to Feltner and Dolander, and the Rockies went with Feltner in the fifth man spot. And don't count out Dolander, though. He's in the bullpen, Evan.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise here is Tanner Gordon. I think he had honestly a better spring than both Feltner and Dolander. Um, but I think also, you know, he still has options. You have the ability to stash him. I think we will definitely see him on the big league roster at some point. But I think when it comes to this fifth and final rotation spot, between Feltner and Dolander, honestly, neither of them exactly ran away with it. I think Feltner gets it by default because he's been here longer and, you know, has
Mm-hmm.
more of an MLB track record. But I think the leash is going to be short. It was basically between him, Dolander, and Senzatela. And for Senzatela, because he left to go be in the bullpen for Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic, he essentially lost out on that spot because he ended up not being stretched out, and now he is not ready to be in a starting kind of role. And we can still see Senzatela on there. But I think essentially the Rockies are going to be running with, on paper, a like 6 or 7 man rotation to start the year.
Yeah, it's a spring training battle that's going to carry on to the regular season because I think it's good to keep Dolander on the big league roster. I think this would be the best place for him to continue to develop and work with the resources of the big league coaching staff while easing into just figuring out, nope, he can pitch on the road. He could start on the road to start the season type of thing. Because they both have their ups and downs and neither of them really took the position. But now they'll have that opportunity because among those three guys, one struggles. Well, you can plug in the other guy and move Feltner to the bullpen. And so we'll see how that, I think we'll get clearer over the couple weeks because then they'll like, oh, we're not using Dolander very much. Let's send him down so we can get more regular action in Albuquerque. So things to look around on, but that's how your rotation will line out, Evan. Uh, yeah. And then other roster thing before we close out this segment, Troy Johnston could still make the roster because Tyler Freeman's dealing with a back issue. Could end up on the injured list to start the season, which would open the way for Johnston to probably make the roster because he's also had a really good spring. Loses out on the first base job, but it's still worthy of a position and looks like he'll just kind of get one by default. The two greatest words in the English language.
Yeah, and Johnson was a bit of a slow starter this spring, but really ended up turning in a solid Cactus League campaign. He can play first base, he can DH, he can be in the outfield. He's got that versatility the Rockies like right now. And, if Tyler Freeman is unable to go for opening day, which is looking like might be the case, Blaine Crim also unlikely to be ready to go. He still has not been playing in games. You've got Troy Johnston, and, you can do a heck of a lot worse than that.
Yeah, that kind of rolls things out. Tell you what, Evan, how about we take our next break and then we'll finish up quick talk on the bullpen and some other developments there, but and some other stuff when we come back here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan rolling out spring training opening day roster stuff. One of the big ones, we knew RJ Pettit, the Rule 5 pick, had an injury, and he did finally get Tommy John surgery, so he is out for the year. Remains to see what exactly they're going to do with him. Probably stick him on the 60-man injury list because the Rockies can afford to. And there's no real reason not to get rid of him, or reason to get rid of him. So you can hold on to him on the 60 for the year, and then his status carries over into 2027, where then he has to be on the active roster for like 90 days before then that's cleared, and then he can be optioned and all that stuff. But it seems like a pretty simple thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer because he did not have a great spring, and then he was hurt, and now we don't get to see him for pretty much the entire year. The 6'8" mountain of a man, but overall, the harm that this does for the Rockies themselves is very minimal. Like you said, he goes on the 60-day, he stays with the organization through the entire year. He can still learn and watch and rehab and all of that stuff with the team. And then should the Rockies decide that they want to have him on the roster next year, they can do so.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. Like, you never want to see excuse me, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but this is much less of a negative development for the organization as a whole than it could have been.
Yeah. And it just kind of clears up that bullpen situation a little bit because you would have had to carry him or just send him back to the Tigers. And so kind of clears up maybe some just what to do. Because, yeah, like you said, he wasn't having a good spring. And, it's hard when you feel like, oh, my hands are tied. I have to keep this guy like they did Anthony Molina a couple years ago or like a Jordan Sheffield. But, now gets rough go of it for Pettit, and we were excited to see what he could do, but kind of leaves the bullpen in question. Of course, all this could be rendered moot by the time you hear this tomorrow. But Evan, what do you make of the bullpen?
The bullpen is complicated just because of what we just talked about, where Senzatela and Feltner and Dolander are all being carried, with Senzatela and Dolander starting the year in the bullpen, is that leaves fewer spots as a whole. And there are a couple guys that we already knew were going to be here. Jimmy Herget, Juan Mejia, Victor Vodnik. None of those guys were really fighting for their jobs, and um, in my opinion, are pretty much set to go. It looks like Brennan Bernardino will be the sole lefty in the Rockies bullpen, which, man, I'm
Yeah.
sick of hearing that over the last few years of, well, there's only one lefty available in the bullpen, but that's just
And
how
how
it's sort of
often would the
shaken out.
Rockies every year, Bud Black or something like, oh, we need to get another lefty in the pen, and then they just never did. And then when they would, it wasn't a very good lefty.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But for Bernardino, I think we can do a heck of a lot worse. He's got a very solid track record out of the bullpen previously for the Boston Red Sox. He's looked fine in camp. He looked fine during the World Baseball Classic. I'm not particularly concerned. I think he's going to be a fine addition, but it leaves you with much fewer spots to work with in terms of the younger guys. Victor Vodnik is already there, but then you've got, say, Zach Agnos or Seth Halverson or Jaden Hill. And then you've got the veteran option from spring training in John Brebbia, who had a pretty good camp, but you would need to add to the 40-man roster. But there's really only maybe two spots to work with. And I think Zach Agnos has earned one of those spots because he has been very, very good this spring. And that just makes you wonder, okay, well, who gets the last spot? Because I frankly don't know. And that makes it
Mhm.
very complicated. I don't think
Yeah.
Halverson has had a very good spring, but at the same time, he's been working on a lot of stuff. You can say the same for Jaden Hill. It's who gets the last two spots in terms of the young guys.
Yeah. It's hard to determine. And of course, we'll learn this all on Monday, probably Monday, Tuesday. But Keegan Thompson, what will happen to him? Will they outright him, DFA him, and outright him to AAA? Like, there's other ways for them to now open up other spots. Thompson drops off. Parker Mushinski, who got off to a rough start at the start of spring, is now a free agent, opted out of his deal with the Rockies, and so there goes a left-handed option who really turned things up in the right direction after that blow up at the start. But now you're just kind of limited on options, and uh, there's a lack of big league ready type of arms. No, there's arms there in AAA, like a Jaden Hill probably goes down there and some other guys, but I think the bullpen, you're at the moment banking on guys just being healthy and replicating some of the success from last year, and I don't know uh, how much you can hope for that because the nature of bullpen arms.
Yeah, it's just kind of messy. It's a lot messier than I expected it to be. Um, just because honestly, the wrench that things get thrown into by Schaefer saying Dollander starts the year in the bullpen is that takes another spot away. And
Mhm.
Senzatela being in long relief, well, there's another spot gone. And I really like John Brebbia. I think he's had a solid spring, but now you have to make a big decision. And then the Rockies are also going to have to go out and potentially pursue some additional minor league talent here as camp draws to a close. Potentially guys from other teams opting out or making other moves. Maybe they make a trade. There's time for them to still do stuff, but I'm just really curious to see what exactly it is they do.
Mhm.
I overall don't mind where the bullpen is at. I think Vodnik is going to be fine. Like I said, I like Bernardino. It's really just figuring out sort of those last options because Seth Halverson was great last year until he got hurt. And then, he's had such a tough spring, very wild when it comes to his command, hitting batters, really spraying the ball all over, not dialing in where he wants to land these pitches. And normally before I would have said Halverson was a lock for the bullpen, but I just don't know at this point.
Yeah. Also, I was thinking, do you think it's wise or a good decision for Warren Schaeffer to pretty much go like, I'm not gonna have a specific closer in the bullpen. We're gonna do it by matchups, and that feel like that's a good move for old Schaefer.
Honestly, I would say yes, because the Rockies are still going to be a bad team this year. Like, I don't think we should let that get away from us. The Rockies are a rebuilding team. Teams that are expected to lose 100 games don't really need a bespoke closer.
Yeah, but it can always help too, like setting people into roles. It helps them in their preparation.
And that is
So
true
that
as
that would be
well.
my thing on it.
But I think starting the season where none of these guys are really already a bespoke closer, Vodnik has done it in rotation, Halverson had done it in rotation, but nobody has ever really been a dedicated closer before anyway. I think then you can let that naturally take shape throughout the year as
Mm-hmm.
you evaluate guys for the future. But I think to start the season, I really don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it can always go both ways, multiple ways. But I was curious about that. But yeah, we'll
It's
we'll learn more about the
complicated.
bullpen. Yeah, we'll learn about the bullpen after you hear this recording or whatever. So tell us what happened. We'll see it ourselves anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the Rockies have what, 2 games left? They've got 2 games against the Tigers on Monday and
It'll
Tuesday,
Tigers.
single game break, and then the season starts on Thursday, and stuff is going to keep happening. We got lucky in terms of recording today that we're recording a little bit later, and because of that, we got to hear all of this news about what Warren Schaeffer was doing with the lineup, with the rotation, potentially even with the bullpen. And this news is going to continue to break. There's more moves to be had. I think about some of the last minute stuff the Rockies have done in the past in terms of guys on the injured list or signing guys or making trades. So really all we can do is wait and see.
Yeah.
And the team is going to be like, yes, we have a set lineup right now. We have a set rotation right now. I guarantee you none of this is going to be the same at the All-Star break.
Uh, also, yeah, our season starts on Friday. So there'll be the Netflix game on Wednesday, and then a bunch of people start on Thursday, and then the Rockies will play on Friday. Fun stuff. But round things out, also, we didn't mention it, but Mickey Moniak, probably your regular DH. And then in the outfield, McCarthy, Doyle, and Beck. Those are all. And Tovar at shortstop. So,
Yeah.
kind of
Little
clears
bit
it
of
all
a
up.
bummer. Zach Veen did not really get a chance to fully earn a roster spot, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. And that, he needs to continue to develop as he works on his new frame, as he works on new hitting mechanics. But he suffered a knee injury during camp this year.
Yeah.
And right now, honestly, I think the outfield as it is fine. You're going to have Jake McCarthy in left field most of the time, is what it sounds like. Brenton Doyle in center, Jordan Beck in right, and then you can rotate some of those corner spots with Ryan Ritter and Mickey Moniak and potentially Troy Johnston.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's all the roster stuff as we wind down here in this episode. Uh, hit some real quick things here. Just in general, were there any like general worries or anything that you saw in spring training that's worrisome that's carrying into the regular season for you? Or it can also be the other side of anything you're impressed or hopeful for.
I'm worried about Seth Halverson. I wonder if that injury had more lasting consequences than expected, even if he avoided Tommy John surgery. I am a little worried about only having one lefty in the bullpen, but at this point, it's something I'm used to. Honestly, I don't really have a lot of concerns right now because of how much flexibility there is and other stuff that we can do and rotate. I liked what I saw out of a lot of our depth options this spring. And I think the big thing is how many guys are going to be sticking around into the regular minor league season. I really like Vimael Machine. Chad Stevens also very versatile. He played basically every infield position this spring, and I think the Rockies would be smart to make sure that he stays as a depth option in AAA Albuquerque this year. Um,
Mhm.
Overall, it's really going to be this year making sure that the things that the Rockies are pushing for end up working out, making sure this philosophy of positional versatility ends up being a strength like they want it to be. Because we've seen the Rockies try and do the whole positional versatility before thing under Bud Black, under Bill Schmidt of, oh, they like this guy because he can play a lot of different positions, but it's sort of a different vibe for that this year in terms of they like the positional versatility because it gave them more chances at competitions in individual roster
Yeah.
spots. But now that's going to lead to depth. And the Rockies farm system is very tired and it is not nearly as deep as we had considered it to be in years past. And for a lot of these guys, it's going to be I don't want to see the Rockies having to make as many desperation call ups this year as they had to last year.
Mhm. Yeah. I think for me, is the big one was you just hope that the walks don't carry over from spring training. I know your guys are always working on things and whatnot, but you got to hope that command and walks. No, we can't have Michael Lorenzen walking 5 guys over 3 innings type of stuff. Like we be able to dial it in, and you just hope that the experimentation comes to an like, okay, this stuff did not work. We're not going to carry it over into the regular season or use it that often. That's the main thing is you worry about. Um, and then for the Rockies, it's the perpetual. Just please don't strike out a bunch. Please put the ball in play this year. Uh, draw some walks if you have to. All that stuff. But I was impressed with a lot of guys. I think the stolen bases and just running on the base paths and contact. It was a big one because you look a lot of those regulars. Jake McCarthy had a good spring. Willie Castro. Lot thing you worry about is we heard it before. And how many times have we heard we're going to steal more bags this year? We're going to steal more this year. And then the Rockies don't steal at all in the regular season. And so I feel like they're going to be aggressive, and then I hope that's what carries over. And I was impressed by the way they do it. It wasn't just like, oh, Zach Fien's stealing a bunch of bases. It was across the board. Willie Castro's going first to third on this hit. They're putting ball in play. They're dropping bunts for a hit, playing some small ball and doing stuff. Fun to see what happens.
Yeah. Keep Jake McCarthy running. Like, from what I have seen from Jake McCarthy this year, there's no reason why I don't think he could have he shouldn't have like a 20 plus stolen base season.
Yeah.
Keep that finger on the steal base button. Because I think what always happened under the Bud Black years was they said, yes, we're going to be more aggressive. And then they were playing to not lose. They weren't necessarily playing to win. They were playing to not lose. And they're worried about, well, anytime we have a base runner, if we send him and we lose it, then we're going to lose. But guess
Yeah.
what? This year, losing doesn't matter. Yes, you want to win games, but it's rebuild time. And
Yeah.
let the guys run freely. You know, if they're making boneheaded mistakes and stuff like that, that's one thing. But let people run, have guys run, utilize all of the reasons why you brought in these quick, athletic, versatile guys, and don't let that just fall to the wayside now that spring training is over.
Yeah. It's a big thing. But yeah, it's just fun stuff to watch. And just you just hope the successes of guys in spring training carries into the regular season. We don't want what happened to Antonio Senzatel last year, setting a franchise record for lowest ERA, 20 innings pitched in franchise history in spring training, and then go on to have a horrific season. Like we don't want that stuff. Just carry the successes into the regular season. Those good vibes. But fun stuff. But as we roll things up here, Evan, one last thing. Spring breakout happened. I watched like the first couple innings and then I stopped. I was also calling a baseball game. But I just kind of stopped because I kept getting notifications on my on my phone showing how badly the Rockies were losing in that breakout game. But What were your takeaways from that breakout game? Because I assume you watched most of it.
I did. I watched through about the 8th inning. The big takeaway is my man Roldy Brito looked fantastic. And he was 2 for 4 with a double. He was getting the bat out. He was showing off his speed. He started off the game with a double to the deep left field corner. I loved seeing that. He's one of my favorite Rockies prospects right now. Ethan Holiday also had a fabulous game, including a bases clearing double to start the game, showing that he's got the thump. Ethan Holiday, we talked about it earlier in the spring where he was getting all that junk from that one, Instagram person or whatever. It's like, oh, he's so overrated and stuff. He's 19 and he's got some development to do. But Ethan Holiday, I think, has all of the tools he needs, and it's just going to be we've got to develop him the right way. But I
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed watching him play yesterday. And another underrated prospect is Wilder Delis, who had a walk and had a base hit as well. It was really outside of those three, however, not a lot of guys did that
Yeah.
much. Christian Arguelles had a really nice throw. That was cool. But
Condon did his thing at the plate.
But it was really Condon drew 2 walks but was hitless. But there was a lot of strikeouts. Robert Calaz especially struck out 3 times. I don't particularly care for that. And then, honestly, the biggest concern was the pitching from a lot of different guys. Brody Brecht had a really tough couple innings. Command was bad. He was walking guys. He was giving up hits. Same can be said for Wellington Herrera and for JB Middleton. But if I had to pick one pitcher I was particularly pleased with, it was Jackson. Jackson Cox, friend of the show. 3 strikeouts in 2 innings, looked great. But the Diamondbacks pitching really just stymied the Rockies prospects. They struck out 11 times, even though they did draw 5 walks. They had 7 hits, but they only scored 3 times. And that was the thing that, we don't necessarily love to see from the Rockies, is failing to capitalize on opportunities. But then again, it's a prospect exhibition match. I wouldn't read too much into it, but it's clear that the Rockies farm system has stuff to work on, and it's going to continue to look very, very different as time goes by. And, I think about, last spring breakout, Brody Brecht played, and he had a fabulous outing. So I'm not, putting all of my eggs in the spring breakout bucket. It's going to be much more of seeing what these guys do in the games that actually matter throughout this season.
Yeah. Fun stuff, though. So was it? They turned into a little tournament next year?
Yes, and that I actually think is a really great idea. I've seen some people clown on it, but if it's going to be like a little tournament of it's your minor league guys and your prospects getting interesting action, and that's fun. Like, I've seen some unfavorable comparisons to like the early season in-season NBA tournament, which nobody really likes, but it's like this isn't necessarily interrupting the regular season. And I like the idea of pitting the farm. Like, you're ranking the farm systems anyway. If you're an MLB writer or a minor league baseball writer, let's give them something to rank. And I don't know. I think it's fun. I'm really excited for it.
I think it would just also help just the environment of those games, because like the spring breakout game, it's like I really don't care. Like, we're gonna have this guy get 2 at bats, then we're gonna swap him out. It's just a lot of swapping out so we can get all of these prospects in. But like, make it a tournament, put some stakes on it, and maybe teams guys would manage them a little differently.
Yeah.
And you are going to be more incentivized to put more of those big name prospects of yours in there if you can. Which it's awesome, because the draw of you can watch Jackson Holiday bat against Paul Skeens. I don't care. I'll see that at some point, like it happening in spring training at the early part of their careers. Like, doesn't do anything for me. But no,
yeah. And I think it could help to drum up fan interest as well, because I know it was 105 in Scottsdale yesterday, but even then, the attendance for that spring breakout game was pretty abysmal.
Yeah. But that would be cool. And cool, Matt Holliday. They asked him to be the hitting coach for that team. It was cool. Vinny was managing and whatnot. So good on them. I like that the Rockies keep dropping the threads for old Matt Holliday. Hey, come do stuff with us.
He did just move to Arizona.
How convenient. To be closer to Jackson or to Ethan, it would seem.
But maybe he could eventually be closer to Jackson with some roster moves.
Hey, I did that in an MLB The Show franchise. I had Ethan Holiday, and then because I just always do fantasy draft, I had Ethan Holiday, and then when Jackson became a free agent, I signed him. And boy, that infield duo at the top of the order, good stuff.
Call that roster home for the holidays.
But good times. But the regular season, it's right around the corner. The next time we talk, we'll have played regular season games.
Actual baseball games that count.
There'll be only a couple, but we'll have done it.
Kyle Freeland will have made his first start.
We'll have seen everybody. Do we have to can reaction like, wow, look at what the team with the most runs did.
That player must be the pride of insert hometown name here.
Wow, I can't believe. You have to put your hand to your mouth to cover it so you can dub it in later.
Jackson Holiday.
Well, can you believe that Michael Lorenzen threw a no-hitter?
Or, wow, can you believe that Michael Lorenzen threw an 8-hitter?
I can't believe Michael Lorenzen came in and pinch hit a game-tying pinch hit go-ahead grand slam in the bottom of the ninth.
But Skyler, John Smoltz said that Michael Lorenzen was going to play outfield for the Rockies and be a regular hitter.
And to that I say, shut your face, John Smoltz.
That was, okay, there's my one complaint. All right, it's complaining time. I get to complain to end the episode. The main Fox commentary crew of Joe Davis and John Smoltz was agonizing this year. Not only did they seem to be pretty uninvested a lot of time, especially John Smoltz, who, I'm sorry, at this point has no business being your primary guy on national broadcasts.
It's part of it too for me was they showed no interest in the other teams that weren't Team USA.
Yeah, it was.
Which I get when you're doing it, like you're broadcast to a USA audience, on Fox primarily, but they had their other Fox crew, and the other Fox crew out in Puerto Rico, of just how much excitement for both teams, for the nature of what's happening in the game. Now, say what you want about AJ Pierzynski. He and the other guy, they weren't too bad in their broadcast.
Yeah, and Tyler Mound and Ryan Rollins Smith in the Puerto Rican broadcast, you can at least say that these guys seem to care and were hyping up all these other teams, versus what really stuck out to me is when John Smoltz and Joe Davis compared, the U.S. struggling against Venezuela in the finals to, well, sometimes you lose to a bad team, as if Venezuela wasn't an incredibly put together team of talented MLB players.
But they didn't have Paul Skeens and Aaron Judge.
And the constant, it was never, oh, the other team is doing something amazing. It was always, oh, well, Team USA could do that.
Yeah. And it was the same way with, like, during the World Series, because you could clearly tell which team they wanted to win.
Yeah. And also, the amount of times where anyone who was associated with the Rockies was playing and they either said something wrong or took the opportunity to dunk on the Rockies on national TV was so frustrating. Like, they really did. They said, oh, the Rockies are planning to have Lorenzen play in the outfield so that he can be designated a two-way player. No, they're not. That was like a rumored thing when they first signed Lorenzen months ago, and it was never actually going to be a thing. And it's the same for, like, they treated Ezekiel Tovar like he's some nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Drives me insane. Like, I get it.
We'll show them this year, though.
The Rockies are not a good baseball team, and they have long been the laughing stock of Major League Baseball. Fine, I get that. But when you are broadcasting an international competition and you have guys from the Rockies who are doing amazing things, like, I'm sorry, Michael Lorenzen made Team USA look like crap during that game in his 4.2 innings. He was excellent. And for him to not get the credit that I think he deserved for that because he pitches for the Rockies now is so wildly insulting and unprofessional to Rockies fans, to baseball fans, and to Michael Lorenzen.
Well, he only signed with the Rockies because then he would be able to hit.
Oh, but we saw him swinging some bats around while he was mulling around the field. Like, that's not a thing that people do to warm up their muscles and things like that. I've seen Brennan Bernardino swinging a bat this spring. Does that mean he's going to be a two-way player in the outfield as well?
Yes. I've seen Ryan Ritter throw a ball. I think he's going to be a pitcher this year.
I knew it. Two-way player Ryan Ritter. Zach Agnos is going to be back at shortstop this year. Call it.
Yep. The Rockies are actually going to designate everybody as a pitcher. And they're going to have a team of two-way players, so you never run out of arms to pitch.
It's going to be like that time in MLB The Show where I made all the pitchers play positions and all the position players be pitchers for a game, and things went quite poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Freeland is a two-way player. He played in right field that one time 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. It's true. But
anyway, that was me venting for a little bit, because otherwise the tournament was incredible and the other broadcast crews were really fantastic. If you haven't had the chance, go listen to the call of Puerto Rico walking off Panama during the group stage. Excellent work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you can go find the RMAC Insider and watch a clip of me calling off a 2-run walk-off homer last weekend.
Do it.
It's fun stuff. I peaked that mic like nobody's business. Good times. But that'll do it here for this edition of Affected by Altitude. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. I would love to hear from you. Catch me occasionally over on Purple Row. I am on somewhat of a sabbatical kind of deal, but I'll still be popping up from time to time. Have a piece on the World Baseball Classic going up on Monday, and I'll be doing some other game coverage and stuff like that. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice. If it's got podcasts, we're on it. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on most social media platforms, including youtube.com, where you can catch the video version of the show. All of those handles are going to be at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
Find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons or on Blue Sky Timmons13 WSKY.social. And then also writing the Wednesday Rock Piles for purplerow.com. Guess we'll be doing game coverages there too. I'll have Wednesday game coverage. That'll be fun.
I think I am going to be Thursdays and Sundays.
Something like that. But yeah, fun stuff. But the season is upon us. And join us along so we have fun throughout the year. We'll try to get, now that the season's starting, we'll try and get back into our rooftop mingles. Maybe we'll do a prospect specific show if we ever figure out time or effort to do that. Who knows? But
and you know what? I think fun. You said we're going to have a lot of fun this year. I think fun is the key word for this season. Baseball is finally here. It's an incredibly low-stakes season, all things considered, for our beloved Colorado Rockies. Let's have some fun, huh?
And let's also get some funds.
You can donate to our Patreon. If you join,
they're not supposed to know about that yet.
If you join the $100 per month McDonford's tier, you can access the whole cutting room floor of Chris Bryant phone calls and George Lucas bits.
Uncut.
Uncut, uncensored.
Like how Dick Monfort is like, I believe we could win like a World Series in my lifetime.
I mean, he's only 71, isn't he? I would hope so.
The next 30 years,
But
if he lives
considering
to
all
be
the
100.
other, that's like probably the least lofty thing that he's said preseason compared to any other year. Where previously it was like, we're going to win 94 games this year. We're going to be the best defense in the history of baseball. And now it's like, we could maybe win a World Series before I die.
The joke is he's never going to die. Robot Dick Monfort. It's coming.
It is coming.
He's funding it.
Dun,
We'll
dun,
see.
dun, dun, dun.
Oh no, Terminator, but it's Dick Monfort going back in time.
Dun, 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 dun.
Evan's on the fence looking into Coors Field when the blast goes off and you turn into a skeleton. Oh goodness. I don't know what you call that. I don't know what you call that. The term a Monfort. We'll workshop that pun. But until next time.
Terminator 2, Monfort Day.
Oh, there you go. But until next time, this has been Affected by Altitude. I'm Skyler. That's Evan. Until next time, farewell.
Farewell. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.